Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jen Liss, the podcast that's here to help you break free, be you, and unleash your inner brilliance. I'm your host, Jen, and in this episode, we're going to talk about the science of breathwork and embodiment. Let's dive in. Hi there, friend. It's Jen. Welcome to week 2 of Brilliance of Breathwork month. All month long, I'm excited to be bringing you guest experts, ideas, topics, conversations to help raise the awareness of the profound and really often unknown mental and physical impacts that this simple tool of our breath, this thing that we're doing all day, every day, can offer to our health, our well-being, and even your career, to help you unleash your brilliance so that when you're 80 years old, you look back at your life and you say, that was a well-lived, healthy, exciting, amazing, spectacular life. I personally believe that through my own practice, through what I've experienced with my own coaching clients, that breath work, our breath is one of the most transformational tools that we have available to us. So today I have invited on one of my own mentors, an amazing human, Andrea Freemyer. Andrea is a neuroscientist, a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, an embodiment guide, and a nervous system educator. She really focuses on helping humans to strengthen the mind-body connection with a blend of nervous system education, embodiment exercises, breathwork, and nature-based therapies. She combines science, energy work, and spiritual practices to help support people live their best lives. She taught me so much of what I know, and it's a true honor to have her come on the podcast today and share her amazingness with you. Before we dive into this amazing conversation with her, I do want to make sure that you know that the doors to Brilliant Breathwork are open. Brilliant Breathwork is my new monthly membership that invites you in to experience breathwork on a variety of topics, helping you to unleash your own inner brilliance. We do beautiful nervous system regulation. We do some trauma release. We invite ourselves to be our most shiniest, most amazing people through all of these different sessions that you get access to. You also get access to the Brilliant Vault, which is filled with on-demand sessions that you can access anytime of a variety of lengths. So if you need just a short, little quick reset, you can access that. If you want to come to a live 1-hour session with me, you have access to that. It's a beautiful space. Right now, because I've just opened the doors to this membership, founding members receive 30% off. You can go to jenliss.com/join, get 30% off as a founding member. This is only through November 30th. And if you join now, you not only get that, you also get access to my virtual retreat that is happening on December 1st, Friday, December 1st. I'm having a half-day virtual retreat, and you will get to come. You will get to come to this retreat completely free. It's an amazing bonus. There's going to be some cool people there. We're going to have human design expert. We're going to have other breathwork facilitators. It's going to be a beautiful journey. So go to jenliss.com/join. Your special code is SPARKLE to get that founding member bonus. Now, without further ado, I'm so thrilled to welcome to the podcast, Andrea Freemyer. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, hello.
I was just telling you, we just grounded in for just a second before we started this interview, and what I didn't know what was going to come up. I was just like, let's just take a breath before we begin. And I felt my heart, and I was like, oh my goodness, Andrea is the person who helped me really feel my heart again. You have this amazing gift of helping somebody just really connect to their heart. You do this heart opening breath work. And my husband and I, honestly, it has possibly even saved our marriage. Like us being able to breathe together and open our hearts together. And the way that you talked about you and your partner doing breath work together. Like, I know we're here to talk about science, but I have to start there and just thank you for that. And I wanted to hit record on this because I think it's so vital that we understand the impact that feeling our hearts again can have.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored. I'm honored to be here, grateful to know you, and honored to continue connecting with you. So
I'm so grateful that you're here to help us understand with breath work. I'm one of those, I was that kid. I was that kid that drove my mom nuts because I was like, but why? Tell me,
that's my
tell me,
kid
but why?
too.
Yeah. You've got one of those. So you're used to explaining things. Yeah. And I think you're helping us come on. We're doing this Brilliance of Breathwork initiative and really looking at breathwork from all of these different facets, whether we might be interested in breathwork or we might be a practitioner of breathwork, and just what are all of the things that can help us understand why this modality is so important and why the breath is something that we should even be talking about. And so I just really want to start there for you because you're a neuroscientist. You're so intelligent. You're so smart. Oh, you're my mentor, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know. You're one of the mentors who's made such a huge impact on my life. And you could have done anything with your brains and skills. Like, why breath? Why is this where you're focused?
Oh my. All right. So breath work has, I think for a lot of us, we're in this place because it's profoundly impacted our lives. Just like you said, this work has helped you to open your heart and has helped you to remember your own inner wisdom and your own inner guidance. And that's really what it's done for me as well. Not to go into a long story about my path to this place, but yeah, I started in science. That was kind of my mission, my drive. I was very passionate about it. But toward the end of my education, I started to lose that passion and that drive. I became a mom. I wanted to spend time with my child. I was away from him a lot of the time. Other things in my life were falling apart. And so when I got done with my degree, I went on to pursue a career in science and did it for almost 2 years. And I was just like, this is just not for me. Meanwhile, in the background, in my personal life, again, things were falling apart. I actually lost my husband at the time in a very tragic way. He actually took his life. And that was just, like I said, about a year and a half after graduating. And I was already in this place where I was like, this isn't what I desire for my life. Then that happened and I was raw. It is the thing that broke me open. It is the thing that brought me out of years and years and years of numbing, of disconnection, of going through the motions, of trying to prove my worth in all these other ways. Like, it was devastating. It was difficult. It was all of the things, and we're still moving through it. I'm helping a now 8-year-old navigate his way through all of it as well. And I chose this to be a catalyst for my growth. And that experience has catapulted me into this whole new world of feeling. And that's what breathwork did for me. I found it. It landed for me about a month after his passing. And I was like, this is what I need. This is what I need to feel my way through this. And that was a very brave thing to do, right? Because we don't want to fucking feel our feelings in really any situation. And that was a big stuff came up with that, And so basically I made that decision day after day. Sometimes I didn't. Some days I didn't choose it. Some days I chose to numb. But mostly I chose to show up for myself, and I chose to show up for my son. And he was the one, I was like, I'm doing this for you at first. And then I really started to understand I'm doing this for me, so that as I'm pouring into myself and I'm healing from the inside out, I can show up for him in a different way, and he can witness that experience as well. So breathwork really helped me to remember my body, to remember, because I was, science. I was very much in my head. Everything had to have a reason. I had to be able to see it, touch it, feel it. Like, had to be tangible for me to believe it. And so I started in science, but I had this more of an experience with breath work at first where forget the science at that point. I just needed to feel. And so I was very much in that place for the beginning of my journey with breath work. And again, I felt my heart. I felt myself open up. I felt a sense of safety in my body that I hadn't felt in so long. So I was safe to feel my way through things. I just felt this like reconnection to the earth, to this beautiful presence that surrounds us. Like it just, in so many ways, it just opened me up to live my life again. And fast forward, after moving through a bunch of stuff and deciding to be trained in this modality, because of the impact that it had on my life and being able to move through such a significant event with this practice. And of course, with the support of others. It wasn't that breath work was the only thing. There were other things as well, but it was a huge part of it. Wanting to become trained to do this because of the impact that it had in my life. And then after doing it for a while, realizing, coming back to my roots, coming back to science and my understanding of the nervous system so like, what is actually happening here? Like, how is this having such an impact on my life and my well-being and all these other, clients and students and all the other people that I was interacting with and training to do this work? And so I really started to dig back in to the science and understand more about like, what is the health, like, what are the health benefits? What's actually going on here physiologically? And so I really, from that place, have decided that I just get to be this really beautiful bridge between like the felt experience, even the spiritual side of how breathwork can impact us, and the more like physiological, tangible, scientific component of the practice. So that's how I got here.
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, I just want to acknowledge your courage, and you acknowledge your own courage, which is even so much more powerful. It just shows what an embodied human you are, that you can be at that place of acknowledging. That was fucking courageous for you to do that in that moment. And I mean, that's a hard path that you've taken, and you've turned something so beautiful out of that. You've taken your story and just shifted it into, I mean, you've changed my life. You've changed countless people's lives with these gifts, and you'll continue to. And I just would love to just pause and just take that moment to acknowledge that for you. And for any listener who has been on just such a hard path, because we all fight our own battles, and we find these things along the way. And the gifts that come to us are so often, it comes in those hard times. Sometimes, it's like we are just like fighting through something, and it brings us back home to ourselves. And you said yes to that when you could have kept numbing out. That could have been, easily could have been another reason to just really numb, and you turned inward, and that's powerful.
Yeah. I used to tell people, like, they're like, I don't know how you're doing it. And I'm like, I don't have a choice. And then I was like, fuck that. I totally have a choice. And this is my choice. I am choosing this. I'm choosing this every day. I'm choosing this, at least at first, it was in every breath, in every moment, because we do have choice, even when it feels like we don't. And choosing to show up for ourselves is a courageous act, for sure.
It totally is. So we talked about this numbing. I'd like to hit on that just really quick, and then we're going to get into science stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a science nerd myself, like secretly science nerd. So I do want to get into, like, for the listeners, especially who are also kind of like, I really want to know the reasons. But this numbing, that we all experience, well, we don't all experience, but some of us. And I just have a feeling a lot of my listeners have likely been on a similar journey that I was on, where I lived most of my life. I feel like I was just a disembodied head.
Yeah, me too.
All up here.
Floating.
And
yeah.
Yes, just a floating, thinking head that wanted to feel nothing from the neck down. I even remember in high school telling my friend, like, I'm dating my husband. And I'm like, oh, well, I mean, just don't feel that. You don't need to feel that. You can choose not to. And so I chose not to feel most of my life. And coming back home to that has been really hard. But why do you think that we numb?
Yeah, because it's fucking hard to feel. I mean, that's the easiest answer, right? Like, I mean, even when I talk to people about breathwork, sometimes I'm like, yeah, like it brings up feelings, it brings up emotions. And I can see people be like, this is not for me. Like, I'm sorry. But really it's a coping strategy. Like it starts as a coping strategy, right? Because we're in a place where our experience is too much for us to feel our way through. Maybe we don't have the tools, or we don't have the emotional education or intelligence or understanding of what's happening. We don't know how to inhabit our bodies and be with the experience. And so we have a sensation or an emotion or whatever come up, and immediately we're like, oh my God, this is too much. I can't do this. And we're in our heads and we're like, I'm going to figure my way out of this. Maybe if I just do this and it'll go away. Or maybe if I just, and so, numbing is one coping behavior, but there's also distraction. There's, avoidance, which I think kind of goes hand in hand with numbing. It's fighting or running away. I mean, there's all of these different ways that we try to resist our lives, that we try to resist our lived experience and the emotions and the sensations that come with it. And ultimately, after doing that over and over and over again, it becomes a pattern that is very deep in our cells. It's very deep in our cellular memory. And that's how our nervous system responds. That like something comes up, oh, this is what I do. Something comes up, oh, here's my go-to. And we become a very automatic beings. We're surviving, we're not living, we're not thriving, right? And it's a pattern in our nervous system. Starts off as a way to cope, and it becomes deeply ingrained in our nervous system. And so without even having aware, and that's the other thing, is a lot of times we're not even aware of what's going on. And so without that awareness, it's just happening. Before we know it, we're 65 years old and we're like, what the fuck did I do with my life? What happened? And so breath work is one way. I think that there's other ways, but breath work is one way for us to be able to come home, like you said, come back. And by come home, it's like back to the body, back to this earthly thing that we've been given, that we live in, that does take such good care of us. It helps us survive. It allows us to survive even when we're not facing the things, right? But when we go deeper into the body through the breath, through awareness, through understanding what's actually happening, through an education of how the nervous system functions, understanding why we do what we do and not criticizing ourselves or thinking that we're broken for doing it. And we go into the body and we feel what's there. We are literally repatterning the nervous system. Like that's neuroplasticity. That's what's happening. Like you're doing something different. You're interrupting a pattern. You're consciously choosing, we already talked about the power of choice. You're consciously choosing to breathe yourself into connection with your body, and you're feeling what's there. And when you do that, you're able to process or release. I don't like the word release as much. I kind of like process, because these are all parts of us, right? They get to be here. They get to be a part of us. We're not pushing it away, but we can release the heavy energy. We can release the tension. We can release, that stuff that comes along with it. And when we do that, we create space in the body to forge a new path to, oh, this is what safety feels like in the body. I like this. This feels like home. This feels good. So then, and maybe we just experience it for a very short period of time. And then we go back to survival and we go back about our day. And then we come back and then we connect with the breath. We connect with the body and we experience it again. And over time, what you're doing from a scientific physiological perspective is you are increasing your nervous system's capacity to hold stress, to hold sadness, to hold grief, to hold pain, to hold whatever, anxiety, whatever it is that's coming up, because you're landing more in your body. Remember, when we're all in our heads, there's not, like, even if you just think in terms of surface area, like we have a beautiful brain that is so powerful and so magnificent. But in terms of surface area, there's not much up here. We have this whole body down here that so many of us are neglecting or just forgetting about or avoiding, because that's where we feel a lot of stuff. And so when we go into the body, we're going into the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, the part that runs largely automatically. But the cool thing is that with the breath, we're taking conscious control of our breathing, which then impacts our heart rate, which then impacts our brain health, which then impacts our blood pressure, which then impacts, and it's just like this beautiful cascade of benefits to our lives, that we're feeling better emotionally because we're not carrying around all that emotional baggage. We're repatterning the nervous system. So we're learning how to be with our lived experience, and it passes through, and we're able to start to enhance our health. Our lung function is enhanced. Our brain function is enhanced. All of these different, our digestive system becomes more balanced. Like all of these beautiful, more physical health benefits start to occur as a result of this. So it's really like this really beautiful cascade of benefits. You just have to start somewhere.
I think you describe this better than anybody. And it's probably because genuinely, Andrea, like you've got this background in science and you've lived the experience. Like you have come back home. There is understanding concepts and there's knowing the concept, and you know it in your physical body. You know it. And I think all of us, no matter what you're an expert in, there's a difference between you being an expert in that thing and you just like really embodying it. And this embodiment piece of breath work, it can help you know the thing that you know so much more. When you're like, I can feel the sensation in my body when I feel excitement, So I thank you for describing exactly what's happening with the nervous system. Can you talk just very briefly, even a layer deeper than that, on what's happening when the oxygen comes into our body, the CO2 is releasing from our body? What's physically happening just at a very light level? What is physically happening when we talk about processing and emotion, and as we're breathing and moving through that, bringing awareness? Maybe just your perspective on that.
Yeah, this will definitely have to be my perspective, because there is so much science, and even in, terms of like the medical field and stuff, that shows how we breathe and like what the process of respiration is, and all the different parts and the anatomy that's involved in it. So breathing is a mechanical, meaning there's breath movement, there's movement of muscles, there's movement of lungs, there's even our rib cage opens up when we breathe correctly. All of these different things happen, and at the same simultaneously, chemical exchange is happening. So like Jen said, oxygen is coming in, it's being transferred into the blood, carbon dioxide is coming out. So then on the exhale, we're releasing carbon dioxide. That is fact. I mean, that's known, that is well understood, that is very well developed. And there's actually a lot of interesting stuff around that, which I don't know if we have time to go into today, but just to answer your question and move on from there, we don't know specifically. There's not research that has been done on this that I have been able to find. If anybody has it, please send it my way, of people that have looked specifically at like, how can we connect this process of respiration, the inhale of the oxygen, the exhale of the carbon dioxide, to releasing emotions. And that's the thing is, and I didn't even know this before I got into science, we're studying one little tiny piece of this much larger process that is so simple and so complex at the same time, that we can only tell one little tiny thing from that. So I will share first some actual science on this, because there has been a little bit of stuff done on this. And this is going to relate to really feeling less anxious. So reducing sensations of anxiety, because that's what this study specifically looked at. and also at decreasing respiration rate. So how fast we're moving the breath through the body, because the faster you're moving the breath through the body on a day-to-day basis, you are in a more activated state, or sympathetic, that like fight or flight pathway, a chronic stress kind of state. So the faster that you're breathing, you're going to feel more sensations of anxiety. So if you slow down the respiration rate, anxiety is likely to reduce. So that's what they were looking at in the study. And they took 3 different breath practices. See if I get these right. So they did cyclic sighing, which is like a physiological sigh, which I will talk about here in a minute. They looked at box breathing, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of. I know they use it in the military and stuff, but it is essentially inhaling, holding, exhaling, holding for an equal amount of time. So like in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. They looked at cyclic hyperventilation, which is moving the breath in and out at a very rapid pace to where you're essentially over breathing. You're exhaling more carbon dioxide than your body is used to. And then they compared that to like mindfulness meditation, where people were just becoming aware of their breath and not doing a regular practice. And I can't remember the exact timeline, but I know they did it for 5 minutes every day. I want to say it was like a month. And so they did like pre-measures, all of these different like behavioral, like what's your level of stress? What's this? I don't remember all the specific things that they did, to look at basically like quality of life and how, and affect. So emotion, how you're feeling. And then they did other like physiological measures, like heart rate variability, so they could get like respiration rate for these individuals. Then they had them do this breath practice every day for 5 minutes. They were all put into different groups, right? And then at the end of the, I think, month, they looked at the results and breathwork overall. So they were all mindfulness, and all the 3 breathwork practices were beneficial. So they all had benefit for people. Breathwork, they grouped all the breathworks together, didn't matter which one you were doing, was more beneficial than mindfulness meditation. And over the breathworks, when they compared the 3 different patterns, cyclic sighing was the most impactful for decreasing respiration rate, decreasing stress, and reducing anxiety. Obviously, these were subjective measures that the individuals were doing, filling out these surveys and stuff. But there was a significant difference, because there can be a difference, right, between things. But in science, we talk about significant difference between the cyclical sighing and the other stuff. So it was the most profound, the most impactful. And again, we're talking about 5 minutes a day, right? Like that. Beautiful. Anybody can do this. Like it's not out of anybody's reach. So cyclical sighing. So the reason why they call it that in this study is because they were doing it over and over and over again, right? So in a cycle. So they're doing the sigh and then they're doing it again. Physiological sigh is what they were doing over and over again. So this is something that our body actually does very naturally. I think like every so often. I forget the amount of time.
When we fall asleep, right? It's one of the.
It actually happens very often throughout our day.
Oh.
However, I haven't seen this anywhere, but I feel like there's probably some point at which we're holding too much tension or too much stress in the body that our body's not able to do that. You know, it's a thing that our body does very well by itself, but perhaps, and again, this is me, I'm not like declaring this as science or anybody's done this study or has these results, but that with chronic stress or chronic tension or whatever it is, that we might inhibit that from happening as often as it's supposed to. But physiological sigh is where you're taking 2 inhales. I don't actually know if it matters if it's through the nose or the mouth, but most of the time it's through the nose, 2 inhales through the nose. So you're taking, so like one big inhale and then a smaller inhale, and then like a long drawn out exhale. And then you do it again. So that's the cyclical sighing that they did. Physiological sigh is impactful for many reasons. And I'll speak to the physiology of this because I just think that it's really beautiful. So when we inhale, our breath can go to, it can come to just like right here to like the top 5% of our lungs. It can come all the way down to reach all the lobes of our lungs, or it can reach most of them. Or it can come all the way down into the body where we're getting a nice abdominal expansion and our lungs and our ribs are moving up and out and our diaphragm's extending down and our lungs are inflating to full capacity. We can send the breath to these different places. When we are, depending on where your breath is going, it has a different nervous system response. So it will activate a different nervous system state depending on. So if you're breathing mostly up here in your neck and your shoulders, you can imagine you would feel a lot of tension for one thing, because let's be real, like we take like 22,000 breaths a day. And if our neck and shoulders are holding all of that, like they're not made for that. They're going to fatigue. They're going to get tired and we're going to feel tension. When we're in that state, obviously we're in sympathetic dominance. Like the sympathetic nervous system is like, our parasympathetic is like offline. We're not feeling safe.
And sympathetic is like the fight, flight, freeze. For anybody who's listening, parasympathetic is your rest and digest, to use the more common.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And then moving down, if you're breathing into like this middle zone of your body, you're getting inflation of most of your lungs, of a big amount of your lungs, but not actually to full capacity. And you're still feeling, it's still sympathetic dominant. You do have parasympathetic activity here. And so it's almost more of a sympathetic parasympathetic situation when we're here. So yeah, so I'm gonna continue to move on. So then if you're breathing all the way down and you're getting your diaphragm, that's the muscle underneath your ribs. If you're getting your diaphragm to contract down and away from your ribs, your lungs are able to open up to full capacity. And parasympathetic dominance when we're breathing in that zone, when we're breathing in that area. So with the physiological sigh, when you inhale once, if you've been doing breath work for a while and you understand what it means to send your breath down into your body, you can get that nice abdominal inhale. You do it a little bit more and you're just expanding yourself open just a little bit more. You can involve like this middle region in that. So you're getting this like nice, full, complete breath. When you get those big, big inhales, and this happens when you inhale anyway, but when you get the nice big inhale and you're getting that full lung capacity, alveoli, which are little sacs that are in our lungs. Obviously, there's more to the anatomy than that, but there's little sacs in our lungs at the end of these like little branch-like structures in the lungs. And there's like 5 million of them in there. When we inhale, especially that double inhale, we are popping those things open. We're filling them up with breath. We're filling them up with air. They're pretty deflated otherwise, especially when we're under a lot of stress. Those things are like all shriveled up and deflated. Like you can imagine a balloon that doesn't have any air in it. And then you blow it up and it inflates. More oxygen is able to move through, more carbon dioxide is able to move out. And we're getting this nice relief like in the body, like physiologically, because that's happening. So that's happening with the physiological side. So that's a huge benefit. And you're also stimulating the parasympathetic pathway of your nervous system. You're landing in that dominant state. So you're feeling more relaxed and more rested. And the physiological sigh is also the most profound and effective way to be able to shift like from a state of anxiety or stress in real time. So like in the moment, you're experiencing something huge. You don't know how, you're like, oh my God, I can't calm down. And you're all up in your head. Do this practice a few times and just keep doing it. It'll take a little bit for you to get back to a regulated state, but it is super effective. It also optimally balances the level of carbon dioxide and oxygen in the body, like, because it really likes to be at balance. And with this breath, we're helping that to be able to happen. So
thank you for describing that. I think the physiological sigh is really fascinating when you start noticing what Andrea is talking about here, where your body will naturally do this double inhale. I've brought a lot more awareness to where my body is just naturally doing it. I felt myself do it yesterday. I was like, oh, there was just a natural physiological sigh. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, that feels good.
Yeah. So you mentioned something to me about this kind of epidemic of over breathing. Does that have anything to do with where does the the balance that you're talking about of oxygen and CO2 that's happening in our body? Do we have more of one than the other, or kind of what's happening with this overbreathing? And what do you even mean by that phrase for the listener?
Yeah. So overbreathing is essentially, will sometimes be used synonymously with hyperventilation, but it is ultimately you're bringing in too much air than your body needs, and you're exhaling too much carbon dioxide. So you're breathing too much, too fast. And so, yeah, bodies like to be at a state of homeostasis or balance. And we have all of these different mechanisms in place that almost work like reflexes to help keep us at a balanced state. Again, we can knock ourselves out of that balance by carrying around emotion, tension, stress, trauma, all these things that we just push down can knock us out of that homeostatic state. But ultimately, our bodies like to be at like a nice balanced place. When you're inhaling, obviously you're inhaling oxygen, you're exhaling carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, however, is not just a waste product. Carbon dioxide plays such an important role in how we feel. It has to be present at a certain level. And they are, to speak to your one question, there's less carbon dioxide in the body than there is oxygen normally, because that's just like, we only need, they're not balanced in the sense that they're the same, if that makes sense. Like carbon dioxide likes to be at a certain level and oxygen likes to be at a certain level. In fact, specifically, and I'm talking about in the blood. So this is carbon dioxide and oxygen in the blood. The pH of the blood, which is impacted by how much carbon dioxide is in the body, because carbon dioxide is an acidic molecule. So if you remember from high school chemistry or something, or maybe beyond, pH is measuring the acidity or alkalinity of our blood. And so the lower the number on the pH scale, the more acidic, the higher the number, the more basic. So when carbon dioxide is at an optimal level in the body, the pH of the blood is like 7.35 to 7.45, which is a little bit more than neutral. Our blood likes to be a little bit more basic or alkaline than other fluids in the body. When we are overbreathing, exhaling too much carbon dioxide, our blood becomes more basic or more alkaline. When that happens, we can it's like as breathwork facilitators, the stuff that we tell people, like, oh, you can experience tingling or tightness in the muscles or dizziness or whatever. That's a result of the shifting levels of carbon dioxide. So if you're walking around, not just in a breathwork session, right? Breathwork session is for a short duration of time, and then you go back to normal breathing, your body can restabilize. When you're walking around everyday life and you're offloading too much carbon dioxide, you can imagine how this would impact your body in not so good ways. So you can start to experience all kinds of things. In fact, people that have kind of like generalized anxiety or a low level of anxiety all the time have low levels of carbon dioxide in their body, too low of levels of carbon dioxide in their body. And if you think of something like anxiety, you can feel anxious. So the thought comes in, you're feeling the sensations that connects with the thoughts. Oh my God, this is anxiety. Oh my God, why am I feeling this way? All these things, it heightens the sensations. You start to panic or hyperventilate, overbreathe. So then you're exhaling more carbon dioxide, and then you're feeling more anxious, right? So overbreathing has an impact on our health in so many ways. And you can just do like a quick Google search and you'll be able to see what it impacts. But basically it increases our blood pressure, it increases our heart rate, it increases our sense of anxiety, like the stress, the kind of being in the sympathetic, it puts you in the sympathetic more, all of that. And so when those are out, when carbon dioxide levels out of balance, it's not a good thing. Carbon dioxide is important because it impacts those things that I already talked about. But we always talk about, inhale more oxygen, inhale all the oxygen. The level of oxygen in the body, the blood specifically, remains pretty stable. The thing about oxygen is that it needs carbon dioxide to be able to be delivered to different places in your body, right? So you inhale, the oxygen moves into the bloodstream through those alveoli that we talked about, and it docks on, you think of a little like ship docking, like on a dock, onto a red blood cell. And hemoglobin is the protein that carbon dioxide or that oxygen docks onto. And it travels on the red blood cell through the bloodstream, and it gets delivered to tissues that need it. So muscles, the brain, all these different areas. If carbon dioxide is not available in the blood at a specific level, oxygen will not be delivered, because carbon dioxide is required for hemoglobin to let go of the oxygen molecule. So if you don't have the right level of carbon dioxide, the sweet spot, then it won't be delivered to where it needs to go. So you can have all the oxygen in your body, but if you don't have optimal levels of carbon dioxide, it's not being delivered to where it needs to go. So carbon dioxide matters a whole lot. And in my research, and I'm just barely scratching the surface of this. So, but yeah.
It's so fascinating because we don't hear anybody. It's like we think of CO2 as it's just waste.
This
That's
waste
what
product.
we're taught
You get rid
in school.
of it.
It's just waste. You get rid of it. And so you're the first person who I've ever heard talk about this concept of how important CO2 is. And everything that you just shared is so fascinating. It just makes us think about what's happening in our bodies differently. Thank you for going. And I realize that's like a science deep dive. The nerds of the group are probably like eating this up, and other people, it's like,
Or
okay,
like, what the hell?
this is a lot. And it is, but it's also really important that we understand what the heck is happening in our bodies. I breathe with my dad a couple times a week, and he's 60. I won't tell everybody exactly how old he is, but he's in his 60s, and he's like, Jen, I never knew how to breathe. The first time I asked him to lower his diaphragm, no, not even that. First time I said, breathe into your belly, he's like, I legitimately have no idea what you're talking about. He's like,
right.
60 years of life, no idea. Like, we just aren't taught this stuff. So just to kind of wrap this whole conversation that we've had about our nervous system, about feeling into our bodies again, about the actual biology of what's happening with our blood from a neuroscientist perspective, from a breath worker's perspective, from this whole, the all that you are perspective. Why should people be doing this? Like, why should people be thinking about their breath?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many reasons. But I think probably the biggest thing is it really having awareness of your breath is going to impact how you feel, and having awareness is going to help you have that awareness, right? But then shifting the breath, taking conscious control. So using your mind to be like, I'm going to make a choice to breathe differently, or see if I can breathe deeper into my body, is going to stimulate a different pathway of your nervous system. So you can find more peace and presence in your day-to-day if you're paying attention to how you're breathing. If you notice you're breathing more in your shoulders or your chest, see if you can send the breath down. And I know that seems very abstract to people that don't, like your dad, who you were just talking about, this unfamiliar. Just play with it. Just play with it and see what you can do. Put your hands down here. Feel your belly inflate. So it shifts the state of the nervous system into a more relaxed state. This allows us to be, and it also enhances that capacity, right? To be able to hold stress, to be able to move through our lived experience without getting stuck there. So it's making us more flexible and to move through life. And let's be real, life is like, like it's not like, okay, I'm good, let's go, maybe for a while, but there's always going to be things that happen in our lives. And the more attuned you are, or in touch you are, or aware you are of your breath and how you're breathing, the more empowered you're going to feel in those moments to be able to be like, okay, I notice that I'm just breathing mostly up here. What if I like, what if I send my breath down deeper into my body? Like, what would that feel like? And just, it can change the way you show up to your life and allow you to move through some things that maybe don't feel so easy to move through. But just remembering that you have this whole body, this whole physiology, this whole everything underneath your neck that is doing so much for you all the time. And it's largely happening automatically. And the breath is the most powerful, effective, quick way to take conscious control of that. Because when you shift the breath, you shift the heart rate. When you shift the heart rate, you shift the messages that are being sent to the brain. You can shift, when you shift the body, you can shift the mind. It's just a really profound thing, and simple. And you all have access to it.
True. You don't have to reach for anything. It's right here with you. I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day. She's like, I just had the thought the other day that your heart beats from the moment you are born until the moment that you stop. we're all like, yeah, that is wild. And then I was like, why are we just now thinking about this? The fact, like, we just don't think about these things that are happening in our body from the neck down. Thank you, Andrea, so much for coming on. Can I ask you one last question? Because this seems a little left field because we've been diving so deep into breath work, but it's a question I ask every single guest. And I'm really curious what will come up for you. Andrea, where do you see the magic in the world?
Oh my God, in nature. Like, I mean, and I know that nature is such a big, broad thing, but it really is all of it. Like, by just feeling the breeze on my skin, like listening to the leaves rattle. It's fall here right now. So listening to the leaves rattle as they fall, like looking, like just watching the ripples on the water, like noticing the intricacy and all the details of the leaves. Like, it brings me back to presence. And not only that, it brings me back to who I am, because I came from that. I am that. And so being able to see, a cliche thing that comes around this time of year with fall is, it's like, it's a time where we can see how beautiful it is to let things go. Cliche, yes. And so true, because nature just does it. It just does it. It doesn't resist. It doesn't hold on to, it just lets it flow. And I just think nature is just such a beautiful mirror for who we are, and yeah, like what it's about, what life is all about. So magic is all around us. You just have to step outside.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming on and for sharing that, and just for coming on and sharing all of your beautiful wisdom with us.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Andrea for coming on the podcast. I hope for the nerds in the group who are like, okay, but what is the actual physical science of what is happening in our bodies? What do we know? What don't we know? She knows all of the things. And in fact, if you are really fascinated by the science of breath work, you want to learn this at a deeper level. And that is whether you are a facilitator yourself, or whether you're a human being who simply wants to understand the behind the scenes of what is physically happening in your body as you do breath work. Andrea will be opening up the next container for her Science of Breathwork course. So please, if you are interested at all, go connect with Andrea on Instagram. You can find her at Andrea Freemyer, PhD. The links are in the show notes. Go check out her website. Go check out what she's got to offer. She really is, I think, the only person who I know who can teach it at the level that she does, with the knowledge that she does, and in the way that she does. We all have, that's what I've really want to bring to awareness with this month, is all of the different people, and that you as a listener can find the person who connects with you, whether it's with coaching, whether it's with breath work, in whatever thing. When you see somebody who really speaks to you in a certain way, say yes to it. And maybe she is your person. Maybe I'm your person. Maybe somebody else that you'll hear from this month is your person, but our mentors show up for us. The teacher arrives when the student is ready, right? So go check Andrea out. She's spectacular, and she has made such an impact in my own life and might make an impact in yours. Thank you again so much for listening to this episode. It means the world to me that you would. If you learned something, if you gained something, if something really surprised you, if you were like, oh, I didn't know the science of that, please leave a review of this podcast and let us know how much you enjoyed it. Another thing you can do is to share this episode with a friend. If you enjoyed this episode, please let other people know. Take a screenshot, share it on social media, tag Andrea and I. We will always reshare your posts. So you just keep shining your magical unicorn light out there for all to see. I'll see you next time. Bye.